On August 20, 1989, the Menendez brothers, Lyle and Erik, called 911 and cried to the dispatcher that somebody killed their parents.
911, what is the address of your emergency?
Someone killed my parents.
Pardon me?
Someone killed my parents.
Who? Are they still there?
Yes.
The people...
No.
Were they shot?
Hey, man,
Were they shot?
Yes.
They were shot?
Yes.
You came home and found who shot?
Mom and Dad.
The police rushed to the scene, and what they witnessed is something they never encountered before. A horrifying crime scene with two lifeless bodies shot multiple times with a shotgun. 𝐒𝐫𝐞𝐝 and Kitty Menendez, a wealthy and seemingly picture-perfect couple found dead in their lavish Beverly Hills mansion, where 𝐒𝐫𝐞𝐝 is shot 6 times and poor Kitty Menendez is shot an astonishing 10 times.
In my 38 years in law enforcement, I've seen murder victims and I've seen suicide victims, but the condition in which these two bodies were in, I'll never forget the look they were.
Lyle Menendez is the elder brother and Erik Menendez is the younger of the two. On that fateful day, both went to watch a new James Bond movie, licensed to Kill, but the line was too long, so they see Batman instead. After the movie, they attend the Taste of LA Festival in Santa Monica. When they return home, they are horrified to see their parents murdered. Police feels sympathy for the brothers. With no reason to suspect them, they offer condolences and allow them to leave the scene. But behind closed door, a sinister truth emerges. After the police departed, a subtle smile and a sense of relief flashed in the brothers' eyes, revealing their dark secret. Yes, Erik and Lyle Menendez are not innocent victims. They are the cold-blooded killers of their own parents.
As I went into the room, I just started firing.
In what direction?
In front of me.
What was in front of you?
My parents.
On the evening of August 20, 1989, 𝐒𝐫𝐞𝐝 and Kitty sitting on a sofa, watching TV in the den of their Beverly Hills mansion. A horrifying and unimaginable scene happens in the history of California. Their own sons, Lyle and Erik, forcefully opened the door and entered the room carrying Mossberg 12-gauge shotguns in both of their hands. When they saw their parents in front of them, they started to open fire. The first shot entered the back of 𝐒𝐫𝐞𝐝's head, and he was shot 6 times, while Kitty was shot a shocking 10 times in total. 𝐒𝐫𝐞𝐝 died at the scene itself, but somehow Kitty is alive on the ground, slowly crawling, begging for her life. Lyle then runs to his car to reload, and then fires the fatal shot to her face.
I mean, how awful is that, to know that your children, the people you gave birth to, are murdering you?
After their heinous actions, both brothers remain in the house, expecting the police to arrive due to the noise of the gunshots. But no one came, so they got in the car and began to prepare their alibi. As they planned, they drove to a movie theater, then disposed their guns, bloodied clothing, and spent shotgun shells in different locations. After getting home around midnight, Lyle called 911 and cried to the dispatcher that somebody killed his parents. But the intrigue doesn't stop there. In an unexpected twist, the two convicted murderers, Lyle and Erik Menendez, capture the attention of social media users worldwide. After spending the last 25 years behind bars, Lyle and Erik Menendez are now going viral on social media, sparking a renewed interest in their decades-old case.
Murder is not the answer to anything, right? But these kids went through hell.
Fans of the brothers are flooding social media networks, fervently advocating for the innocence of the brothers through compelling videos and heartfelt testimonials. Buoyed by the renewed attention, the Menendez brothers' attorney is pushing for the reopening of the case. He has filed 2 new pieces of evidence in favor of the Menendez brothers. As the defense fights for a new trial, a burning question looms. Will this fresh evidence be potent enough to secure the brothers' freedom after a lifetime spent imprisoned? How much twist in the story do they hold back in these murders? In the era of true crime fascination, Netflix announces its latest project, Monsters, the Lyle and Erik Menendez story, set to premiere in 2024. The streaming giant delves into the twisted tale of the Menendez brothers, exploring the dark secrets hidden behind their picture-perfect family facade. The Menendez family seem to be a perfect model of the American dream. 𝐒𝐫𝐞𝐝 Menendez and Mary Louise Menendez, Kitty, are loving parents, and in 1986, they moved to the luxurious Beverly Hills, California. Lyle is 21 and Erik is 18 at the time of their parents' murder. For the outside world, they born into a wealthy, successful family who lived in large houses in nice neighborhoods. But for Lyle and Erik, things are very, very different. During the early stages of the investigation, The police tried to narrow their search to suspects who had motives to kill Jose and Kitty, and also investigated potential mob leads. As their investigation continued, they began to suspect that the brothers were the most likely perpetrators because of the obvious financial motive and their exorbitant spending after their parents' deaths. On August 24, 1989, the day before his parents' funeral, Lyle dropped over $15,000 on 3 Rolex watches. Lyle, who was 21 at the time of the murders, purchased a Porsche, lots of clothing, and bought a popular student restaurant, Chuck's Spring Street Cafe, for $550,000. Erik was more practical, opting for a Jeep Wrangler, a $50,000 personal tennis coach, and a $40,000 investment in a rock concert that never happened.
They were spending quite a bit of money on lavish items.
They took exotic vacations too, thinking they had even more money coming to them. There was also a $5 million life insurance policy on their father, though technicalities stopped them from collecting. Jose was worth $14 million at the time of his death, and within 6 months, the brothers spent an estimated $700,000 of his fortune. They didn't even show an ounce of remorse for their heinous act. Instead, they acted like 2 guys who had just won the lottery.
They spent a lot of money. In fact, I think some estimates say that in the first 6 or 7 months after the deaths, they spent $1 million.
As the days turned into weeks after the brutal murders, the Menendez brothers believed they had successfully fooled the authorities with their alibi. They continued to live their lives, seemingly unaffected by the tragedy that had befallen their family. In March 1990, nearly 7 months after the murders, the police arrest Lyle and Erik Menendez. The nation is shocked once again when they find out the brothers are guilty. People have a hard time believing that these wealthy and privileged young men could be accused of such a brutal crime. Without Erik's guilt, the Menendez brothers might have escaped justice. After the traumatic events, Erik confided in psychologist 𝐒𝐫, admitting they had killed their parents. Meanwhile, Lyle, fearing exposure, threatened 𝐒𝐫, warning him that he'd be dead if he spoke out anything about the confession. Erik believes that doctor-patient privilege will protect their secret, but guilt weighs heavily on him. It's evident that Erik feels immense remorse for killing his parents. While some argue that Erik was under his older brother's influence, it's crucial not to underestimate his role in the murders. In a surprising turn of events, 𝐒𝐫's mistress, Judelon Smith, takes matters into her own hands and exposes the brothers' confession to the police.
Why did you go to the police on March 5th and tell Detective Zoller that you had certain information about the Menendez brothers confessing?
Because I believed that Jerry 𝐒𝐫 was going to have me killed.
Subsequently, the police confiscate the therapy tapes from 𝐒𝐫's sessions with Erik and Lyle. This revelation marked a critical turning point in the case, leading to the arrest of the Menendez brothers in March 1990. During the Menendez brothers' trials, the prosecution presented the therapy tapes recorded by psychologist 𝐒𝐫 as crucial evidence. In these tapes, both Lyle and Erik confessed to the murders of their parents.
I asked him, you mean you killed your parents? He said yes.
They provided detailed accounts of how they carried out the killings and the reasons behind their actions.
The defendants told Dr. 𝐒𝐫 that they killed their father because he controlled them and made them feel inferior. Based upon this evidence, it will become apparent that this murder was unlawful, unjustified, and wholly premeditated. But for a few mistakes they made, this was almost the perfect murder.
In court, the brothers' defense team argues that the confessions made during therapy sessions are protected by doctor-patient privilege, and therefore, the tapes should be inadmissible as evidence.
Erik Menendez, we are going to vigorously defend his right to have a confidential communication with his therapist.
The trials are highly publicized, and the prosecution uses the confession tapes to portray the brothers as cold-blooded killers motivated by greed and a desire for financial gain. The defense, on the other hand, attempts to paint a different narrative, suggesting that the brothers acted in self-defense due to alleged abuse and a dysfunctional family environment. In the end, both trials result in the same verdict. Lyle and Erik Menendez are found guilty of first-degree murder. In July 1996, the Menendez brothers received life sentences without the possibility of parole. After the trials, in 2017, Lyle Menendez told ABC News that he accepted the irreversible gravity of their actions. Initially, the Menendez brothers appeared to be victims of a terrible crime. However, in 1993, Court TV broadcasted the trial, forever altering the public's perception of the brothers. In court, the Menendez brothers shocked the world by tearfully confessing to the murder of their parents. Yet defense attorney Leslie Abramson argued that the boys had killed their parents in self-defense after a lifetime of abuse from their father.
Jose Menendez's obvious purpose was to use his child's body to satisfy his lust.
Esther Rice, the show's director, recalled her initial disbelief regarding the brothers' motives. She remembered wondering why these two young men, who appeared to have everything, would risk it all by killing their parents. At the time, it didn't seem plausible to her that they would commit such a heinous act out of greed. As a spectator, she observed how the narrative of greedy rich kids was gradually shaping the audience's perception. The Menendez brothers' tearful confession and Abramson's persuasive arguments swayed many people into believing that the brothers had killed their parents in self-defense. They provided detailed accounts of the sexual abuse they endured from their father when they were between the ages of 6 and 8.
Between the ages of 6 and 8, did your father have sexual contact with you?
Yes.
Many found it implausible that anyone would lie about such horrifying events. However, others believed that the brothers murdered their parents out of greed, as their mother, Kitty, was planning to exclude them from her will. Recently, numerous videos have surfaced on social media platforms, shedding light on the Menendez brothers' case. These videos are shared by supporters of the brothers who advocate for their innocence.
Criminal.
These advocates, often referred to as the Menendez defenders, firmly believe that the Menendez brothers are innocent, primarily due to the extensive abuse they endured as children at the hands of their father, Jose. In today's era of true crime shows and fervent fan communities, the Menendez brothers' case continues to attract significant attention despite the 3-decade gap since the crimes occurred. In recently filed court documents, the brothers' attorneys present 2 new pieces of evidence aimed at corroborating the allegations of long-term sexual abuse. One such piece of evidence is a letter penned by Erik Menendez to his cousin, 𝐂𝐫𝐞𝐝, in early 1989, a mere 8 months before the tragic events of August 1989. In a letter, he tells 𝐂𝐫𝐞𝐝, "I've been trying to avoid Dad. It's still happening, Andy, but it's worse for me now. I can't explain it. He is so overweight that I can't stand to see him. I never know when it's going to happen, and it's driving me crazy. Every night I stay up thinking he might come in. I need to put it out of my mind. I know what you said before, but I'm afraid. You just don't know Dad like I do. He's crazy. Has warned me 100 times about telling anyone, especially Lyle." 𝐂𝐫𝐞𝐝 died in the early 2000s, and his possessions had been sealed in a room for years. The letter was recently discovered by his mother, Marta Menendez 𝐂𝐶𝐾, when she went through his belongings. The letter, attorneys argue, suggests the abuse occurred not only during the siblings' childhood, but also into adulthood and near the time of the murders, when Erik was 18 and Lyle was 21. Another piece of evidence is recent allegations by MacLeod, a former member of the Puerto Rican boy band, claims he was also sexually abused by Jose Menendez as a teenager. He alleged Menendez performed sex on him before a concert in New York. After the concert, Menendez raped him at a hotel. The new evidence not only shows that Jose Menendez was very much a violent and brutal man who would sexually abuse children, but it strongly suggests that, in fact, he was still abusing Erik Menendez as late as December 1988, during the time of the murder.
I didn't like Mr. Menendez. I didn't find him very likable. Totally controlling, belittling, and instilling fear.
Just as the defense had argued all along, a cousin, Diane Vandermolen, testified that Lyle Menendez once came into her room when she stayed overnight. She was 16 at the time and he was 8. She testified that Lyle was scared to sleep in his own room because Jose Menendez was touching Lyle's and forcing Lyle to touch his as well.
Lyle came down and indicated to me that he and his dad had been touching each other, and he indicated that it was in his area.
Well, he told me his father was massaging his.
He used that word?
Yes, he did.
How could that many people give the same synopsis of what was going on in that household? They didn't get together and make this story up.
On the other hand, a friend of Lyle also testified that Lyle tried to convince them to lie on the stand, including concocting a tale that the brothers tried to get a handgun because they felt they were in danger. Lyle's former girlfriend also testified that he asked her to falsely testify, that Jose Menendez had asked her to stop seeing Lyle, and then drugged and raped her when she refused to. There were overall concerns about the credibility. The case continues to be a fascinating and controversial true crime story, capturing the public's imagination and raising questions about justice, motive, and the complexities of human behavior. The Menendez murders became one of the most famous criminal cases of the late 20th century. A big question still remains: are the Menendez brothers murderers or victims?
You know, you characterize it that way, and you think it's funny, but
My brother and my life was very miserable for 6 months before we got arrested. And obviously wasn't better after we got arrested, and isn't good now. And it never really has been great. Getting arrested in some ways was a relief, and the changes that have happened are a relief.
The outcome remains uncertain, as habeas petitions are always uphill battles, and it's challenging to seek to reverse a conviction after 30 years. Even if the abuse allegations are deemed true, is it enough to change the finality of the convictions? Please comment below and make sure to like and subscribe for more true crime videos.